तो ये बताओ, there was another beautiful episode in your life because you come with that unique experience कि आपने शुरू भी किया धंधा, आपने फेलियर भी देखा, एक वो एंटरप्रेन्योर का एक ईगो, एंटरप्रेन्योर का एक that separation anxiety बोलिए, the so called mindset to say यार I should have the maturity to know that this is not the time anymore to continue with this, जो हम अभी थोड़ी देर पहले बात कर रहे थे, ventilator moment and when to pull the plug. And then you had the benefit of also working as a KMP in a large startup before you went ahead and built the current startup that you're a part of, which we'll talk much more in detail later. The reason I asked this भाई is because Zoomcar के days में आपने काफ़ी कुछ किया. Again, what can be drawn out from here, what can be extrapolated from here for the benefit of our audience and our viewers is कि a person can learn so much in KMP roles where it will add value not just individually to a person but it will also add value perhaps in future when you're building something, है ना भाई? Very few people and काफ़ी सारे हमारे ऐसे दोस्त होंगे, काफ़ी सारे हमारे ऐसे दर्शक होंगे जो अब वो जोन में है that they might be entering into that entrepreneurial role. They might be just being selected for an L1 or L2 role. They might be thinking कि यार इस फाउंडर के साथ काम करके ये सीख मिलेगा. How is mindset when you handle a vertical within a large brand? How does that set up and create that further essence of your mindset to say, यहाँ से I can take 10 other things and build. Parallel to that, bhai, how difficult is it again to get into that comfort zone and say, up to yaar, it's like an entrepreneurial role. I'm almost a pseudo entrepreneur within an existing organization which is hopefully pretty large. I'm comfortable. कौन जाके वापस वो जगदोजहद में जाएगा, वापस वो रायता जो फैले उसको समेटेगा. So take us through the mindset of an entrepreneur because you've had the advantage of doing that.
If you're an entrepreneur, right, the first thing that you need to start with is some level of gratitude, right? And see, there is somebody who's absorbing a lot of uncertainty and, who actually has built some stage over which you can build and, you should cherish that opportunity. And say, fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of things happen for the first time in life.
Correct.
So basically, what happens is appreciation of that platform is very, very important. And a lot of times I think people underappreciate that. And so if somebody has built that platform over which you are building, so you should acknowledge and then basically you should go in with full force that if basically a lot of that, let's say 80% of uncertainty is being absorbed by somebody else, what is it that I can build on top of it? That's a good playground. Where you
but भाई इसमें एक क्वेश्चन है मेरा. Is it कि आपके माइंड में या फिर आपके जहन में ये जो कृतार्थपन है, the gratitude that you're talking about, did it come because you went through a journey of entrepreneurship on yourself and therefore you knew? I keep saying this, bhai, but once you become an entrepreneur, you get a lifetime membership to a club called the Empathy Club.
Right.
Everything that you took for granted, you stop taking for granted. So is it, bhai, कि a lot of this gratitude that you're talking about came easily to you to appreciate on a platform because you tried to build something versus a lot of people who start with a platform and therefore it's easier for them to try and take for granted as against appreciate what someone's built and therefore life is a little bit of, or there's a little bit of certainty and trajectory for those people.
Itna to hota hi hai na, if you fail in a few things, right, then you understand that there are so many things in life which may or may not work, right? So even this Zoom thing happened and I'll tell you the serendipity of it. I actually had come from, that time I used to live in Pune and I had come to Bangalore and because I wanted to do some deal over here and then coincidentally that did not work out and I was free early in the day. So I called up a friend of mine, today I'm khali, let's meet up. And he said, no, what? Today is my first day of the job at a startup. I've just joined this new startup called Zoomcar. But in that time, the office used to be near Infantry Road.
Which year was this?
This was 2015.
Okay.
Right? So I said, okay, I'm nearby. So itna to milte hai. And that friend of mine, he's a smoker. Bola, okay, tere saath sutte pee lunga do. And so I went there, met him. He came from the office and, he smoked. We ate a couple of sandwiches at Safina Plaza. And then jate bola ki yaar, chal ek baar jate फाउंडर से भी मिलता चल, तेरे को इंट्रोड्यूस कराता हूँ. Went, shook hands with, Zoom founders, came back, and then this whole episode happened later that I decided to wind it up and stuff. Then I called this friend again. Bole, I'm thinking about something next in life. Bole, yaar, we are there in Bangalore. We want to start a new city, and you are already there in Pune. Pune was anyways number 2 on our target. Why don't you consider this? So it was people, right? For me,
so it goes back always to that relationship.
So people for me, right? I'm indebted to people more than anything else, right? I mean, it's forever, right? It has always been a people story for me, right? So it was this friend who said, "Yeah, why don't you give this a try?" Because see, the funny thing is, one of my masters is in transportation engineering, but it does not help you when you're setting up operations for a car rental company on the ground and you're trying to get licenses and build operations on the ground. It's a very realistic space, whereas like the transportation engineering is a theoretical.
Right.
So, and then I was running an education company prior to that. So somebody, and even Zoom founders, they believed that chalo theek hai, let's give somebody a chance on hardcore on the ground ops. Somebody coming from literally a failed education business, so as to speak, right? And this friend of mine, he was kind enough that he took that leap, and I bet it would have emanated from him, right? That, let's have this person and stuff, right?
What do you think were the characters that drew out to them about you? Is it that because you started up, because you came from a background, is it that they saw? आजकल ना 2-3 टर्म्स बहुत पॉपुलर हो गए विकास भाई. एक बहुत पॉपुलर हो गया द पावर ऑफ हसल, दूसरा बहुत पॉपुलर हो गया द एसेंस ऑफ जुगाड़. सो काफ़ी हद तक लोग बोलते हैं यार, अगर आपने कुछ खुद किया हुआ है, खुद कोशिश किया है, खुद का कुछ बनाया हुआ है, तो यार बंदा जुगाड़ तो देख लिया लाइफ में. एक थॉट प्रोसेस विकास भाई होता है कि जुगाड़ ना इनहेरेंटली हम में एज इंडियंस है. बचपन से कुछ ना कुछ हम जुगाड़ ट्राई कर रहे हैं, बचपन में कुछ ना कुछ हम इंटरेस्टिंग ट्राई कर रहे हैं. दूसरा भाई होता है कि व्हाट इज हसल.
दैट्स अ ब्यूटीफुल वर्ड, राइट?
आई लव इट यार. आई मीन लुक एट द ब्यूटी कि हम बात कर रहे हैं, और यहाँ पे ये एक तरीके से दिस इज आल्सो ब्लेसिंग, राइट? कि ये एडवांटेज आसानी से मिलता नहीं, राइट? सो देयर इज अ ब्यूटी अबाउट डूइंग an anti-set podcast of what I try to do. So for me, these are my USP moments in a lifeboat. But ये बताओ भाई, is it that there were aspects like this that your friend or the founders could see through, or would you give maybe importance to some other elements of character traits which again a lot of our viewers can draw inspiration from or learn from?
See, I believe in the idea of balancing everything out, and I cannot reiterate it enough, right? So for example, hustle is extremely necessary, hustle is extremely important, but at the same time, in a system, everybody cannot hustle, right? So for example, even in family, right? I mean, so for example, either it is the mother or the father who is a bit more strict towards the kids. If both are strict, I mean, then kids don't appreciate.
फिर वो बच्चा अलग तरीके से ही पैदा होकर बड़ा होगा.
तो ये, so let's understand what is this hustle, right? So hustle is basically being ready for action at any given point of time. You don't go back into your comfort zone and things like that. I think a lot of this hustle is misconstrued, right? So for example, when you watch an American TV show and you see that young American entrepreneur or the so-called CEO and that A-league, what you call the A-type personality, and talking this and doing that, and then that whole idea of apprentice, that telling somebody you're fired, and that. So I think that way hustle is extremely misconstrued. You can be very, very poised and still you could be hustling. For example, I'm just taking a key and you can stop me whenever. In your profession, it does not matter that how much do you scream. It's the validity of the point that matters more than how
logic matter करता है ना भाई.
How loud your pitch was.
चिल्ला के आप क्या कर लोगे यार?
Correct.
Okay, कब तक ही चिल्लाओगे यार?
So hustle is, I think, bias for action more than a bias for So that's where hustle is extremely important. But at the same time, what will happen is things can go in so many different directions. So somebody has to, put it to certain directions as well. So it's a yin and yang which is required every which ways, right? In your experience, you would have seen 10 different organizations where everybody is hustling when they don't go nowhere. And at the same time, organizations where everybody is in a comfort zone, that does not work either. So the idea is being out of the comfort zone, hustling, but at the same time giving it a focused direction. Because without which nothing goes in a particular way, right? So you should strive for that 120% outcome, right? But at the same time, it should not come at the cost of what you call fluttering, as I was saying earlier and stuff. It can come in a lot more balanced way. And then you need to allow that ecosystem where people can play different roles and people can play different, so for example, this happens a lot in creative pursuits, right? So if you see anybody with an artistic role in a company, for example, somebody is just doing some graphics, right? I mean, they need to come back to a perfect outcome, right? Or, whatever they seem is perfect. That comes out of 5 iterations, 10 iterations, 12 iterations, or does it come in, like 2 iterations and things like that? Does it come through an extreme planning process, or does it come through a lot of iterative process? Because artists take very different approaches into that.
बिल्कुल सही बात.
Both are hustles. People have that, strategic plan, and this is how they come up to a particular outcome. The other people do it with a lot of iterations, that I'll do it 10 different times and one of them will become better than others. Right. So each of them is a hustle. It's just that one is guided in a one way, another one is guided in a certain way. Both are different schools of working, and finally you get to an outcome. As long as, in today's world, digital world, you need more output as well. You need 10 creatives, you need 10 creatives. It's not that you can say that I've made one genius piece. At the same time, those 10 things have to be of a great quality. It can be achieved in so many different ways. People need to find out what is their way. People need to find out what is their organization's way, right? We see companies which bring out one genius products. It may succeed or it may fail. They'll bring out. There are other companies which will bring out 10 products at the same time. The easiest examples are, automobile industry or electronics industry, and you see different companies taking different approaches. Not that one is hustling less than the other one and so on. Different approaches, same path. Both want market share. Both want a bigger, value for shareholders and everything. Different approaches.